Hello and welcome, I'm Sanjay Pinto. A terrorist who, along with his indoctrinated accomplices, gunned down 160 innocent people in Mumbai is given a fair trial, has crores of rupees spent on his security, demands biryani, flavoured toothpaste and deo spray as he laughs inside the courtroom and spits at jail staff. But a man who supplied batteries to make a human bomb faces the gallows after spending 20 years, after spending the prime of his life behind bars, and after showing signs of reformation by completing his post-graduation and even teaching other prisoners. This is a question being posed by crusaders against the death penalty. They demand mercy for Per Arivalan and two others, Murugan and Santan, after the president rejected their pleas to save them from the noose. Lawyers, law students, or at least a section of them, political leaders and civil rights activists have joined in the chorus to save these men. But on the political firmament, there's the characteristic trading of charges between the state's arch rivals. But this is essentially a legal question. On the big question tonight, we are joined live by senior constitution expert and lawyer Mr. K.M. Vijayan, National Vice President of PUCL and lawyer Sudha Rambalingam, and senior journalist and somebody who's also got a legal mind, Mr. S. Murari. But all that and more in that discussion comes up after a few minutes when Ashmit takes you through the headlines and the top stories. Ashmit?
Right, Sanjay, let's take a look at the top stories that are creating a buzz at this hour. Chief Minister Jayalalitha says she has no power to grant mercy to the death row convicts in the Rajiv assassination. Karnati says Rajiv Gandhi would have been alive, he would have saved the trio from the gallows. Legal Eagles led by Ram Jethmalani and Colin Gonsalves to argue for the three convicts in the Madras High Court. After Per Arivalan's mother, it's the turn of Murugan's 19-year-old daughter, Haritra, to make an emotional appeal for her father's life. Amma's ally, the CPI, goes on the offensive, alleges that unanswered questions have been swept under the carpet to hold statewide fasts on September 3rd. Lawyers and students poured out on the streets to demand mercy for the three convicts. After NDTV Hindu's intervention, 2 students are allotted community certificates enabling them to appear for Class 10 exams. 123 others are still waiting. When will the spate of unsolved murders be cracked in Chennai? A common thread, love affairs, surfaces. An AIDMK government in power, a DMK mayor at the helm of the corporation, a fast approaching monsoons and local body polls. How is the corporation gearing up? And new flyovers and subways to snake around critical junctions and arterial roads to ease traffic congestion. Let's also take a look at developments pouring in from across the nation. MP submit privilege notices against Om Puri and protest against Kiran Bedi's derogatory remarks against parliamentarians. Om Puri apologizes. Former Karnataka Chief Minister Yedurappa appears in the Lokayukta court, applies for bail. All 12 convicted of former Narendra Modi Minister Hareen Pandya's murder acquitted in Gujarat. The court slams the CBI. Water is expected to recede after rains disrupts train traffic in Mumbai. 1 person killed after a hill caves in at Haji Ali. 7 of 137 passengers have minor injuries after a Gulf airplane skids off the runway in Kochi. Well, first up, in a case that has evoked sharp sentiments across the spectrum in Tamil Nadu, the case of the 3 Rajiv Gandhi assassins on death row. Now, the 3 convicts facing the gallows have moved the Madras High Court, hoping to squash the rejection of their mercy pleas by the president. Now, Advocate N. Chandrasekharan represented the 3, Murugan, Sandan and Per Arivalan. Now, having filed a writ petition, the case is expected to be heard on Tuesday. Now, they are scheduled to be hanged on the 9th of September at Vellore Jail. The 3 convicts have been behind bars for 20 years. Their mercy petitions have been rejected by the president after a 10-year-long wait. Meanwhile, political outfits such as the DMK, the DMDK, MDMK, PMK and finally the CPI have urged the centre and the state governments for commuting the death sentence.
Today we have filed a writ petition before the High Court seeking for the stay of execution and also for commuting the death sentence. The matter will come up tomorrow for hearing before Justice Paul Vasantakumar. And senior advocates Mr. Ram Jethmalani, Mohit Chaudhary and Colin Gonsalves, those 3 senior advocates are appearing tomorrow. And we are very much confident of staying the execution immediately. We have got enormous precedents in such type of cases. And the main point which we are emphasizing is the executive delay in considering the mercy petition. And there are innumerable judgments available, Supreme Court judgments, the constitutional bench judgments are there. And we'll rely upon that and we will commute the death sentence and stay the execution.
Well, staying with this developing story, the daughter of Nalini and Murugan, Haritra, has appealed for commuting death sentence of her father. Now, in this audio message posted on a pro-Tamil group website and addressed to Congress President Sonia Gandhi, Haritra seeks mercy for her father.
நான் ரொம்ப எங்க அம்மா அப்பாவை மிஸ் பண்ணிருக்கேன். எந்த குழந்தைக்கும் அம்மா அப்பான்றது எவ்வளவு பெரிய விஷயம்னு உங்க எல்லாருக்கும் புரியும்னு நினைக்கிறேன். நானும் நிறைய மனு முதலமைச்சருக்கு அனுப்பிச்சிருக்கேன். அவங்க அட்லீஸ்ட் விடுதலை செய்யாட்டி கூட அவருக்கு இந்த கொடுமையான தண்டனை வேண்டாம். என்னால தாங்க முடியல, நினைச்சு கூட என்னால பார்க்க முடியல. தயவு செய்து நீங்க எனக்காக எல்லாரும் ப்ரே பண்ணிக்குங்க. உங்களால முடிஞ்சா முதலமைச்சருக்கு மனு அனுப்புங்க. ரொம்ப ரொம்ப நன்றி. நீங்க பண்ற ஹெல்ப்புக்கு எல்லாம் எனக்கு ரொம்ப பெரிய விஷயம் இது நீங்க பண்ணீங்கன்னா நான் இப்பவும் கிரேட்ஃபுல்லா இருப்பேன். தேங்க்யூ.
And well, while this emotionally charged issue has left the public opinion divided, Markande Kajju, a judge with the Apex Court, defended the sharp moves made by the Supreme Court. Justice Kajju said that such moves will serve as a necessary deterrent.
There must be no leniency. You have to be tough. Certain situations require tough measures. And in my opinion, for honor killing, fake encounter killing, dowry death, you must have a death sentence in these cases. You can't be kind and liberal to these barbaric people. If a few people are hanged, I tell you all these practices will stop. I'm not a bloodthirsty person or something. Please don't misunderstand. But certain situations require tough measures. If you want your country to progress, you have to be tough at times. This leniency will not take you anywhere. You will remain a backward country if you...
Well, lobbyists and activists campaigning against the death penalty for the 3 convicts in the Rajiv Gandhi assassination case are not buying Chief Minister Jayalalitha's stand that she does not have the power to intervene. Now, speaking in the assembly, she said that only the President of India can help. Even as the cry for commuting the death penalty of 3 convicts in the Rajiv Gandhi assassination case is reaching a crescendo, Chief Minister Jayalalitha made the legal stand crystal clear.
The Government of India, on an examination of the matter and after taking all relevant constitutional aspects into view, direct in terms of Article 257(1) of the Constitution of India that in cases of death sentences where a petition for grant of pardon, etc., has earlier been rejected by the President of India in exercise of his powers under Article 72 of the Constitution of India, it would not be open for the government of a state to seek to exercise similar powers under Article 161 in respect of the same case. However, if there is a change of circumstances or if any new material is available, the condemned person himself or anyone on his behalf may make a fresh application to the President for reconsideration of the earlier order. Once the President has rejected a mercy petition, all future applications in this behalf should be addressed to and would be dealt with by the President of India.
Meanwhile, it's all political speak now. Vijay Kant, the DMDK chief and leader of the opposition, has appealed to the centre to intervene and to commute the death penalty given to the 3 convicts. DMK chief Karunanidhi has once again appealed to both the centre and the state as well. PMK founder Dr. Ramados urged the Chief Minister to pass a resolution against the death penalty in the assembly. But Congress has welcomed Jayalalitha's stand.
சட்டரீதியாக அதை செய்ய முடியாது என்பதை மிக தெளிவாக அவர்கள் எடுத்துக் கூறியிருக்கின்றார்கள். அதை காங்கிரஸ் பேரவையின் சார்பாக நாங்கள் நன்றி தெரிவித்துக் கொண்டு சட்டத்தினுடைய முடிவைத்தான் யாராக இருந்தாலும் ஏற்றுக்கொள்ள வேண்டும் என்பதுதான் நிலைப்பாடு என்ற நிலை இன்றைக்கு உருவாகிறது என்பதை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன்.
While there are conflicting reactions to the Chief Minister's statement, given that Jayalalitha does her homework thoroughly on law, is likely to come out with an explanation in the coming days. In Chennai, with Peer Mohammed, this is Ashmit Kumar for NDTV Hindu. Well, meanwhile, in a case of politically maneuvering the issue, the former Chief Minister M. Karunanidhi appealed to the centre and the state to commute the death sentence of the 3 convicts. Now, he argued that the 3 have spent 20 years in jail, more than a life sentence. He also said that if Rajiv Gandhi were alive, he himself would have commuted the sentences of the 3 convicts. Well, also speaking to the media in Viluppuram, the DMK treasurer unleashed on the ruling party and the chief minister. Taking on Jayalalitha, Stalin backed the call for commuting the death sentences.
சட்டமன்றத்தில் ஒரு அறிக்கை படிச்சிருக்கிறாங்க. இது எனக்கு அதிகாரம் இல்லைன்னு. அதிகாரத்தை பற்றி முக்கியம் இல்லை, பரிந்துரை பண்ணலாம்ங்க. அதுதான் தலைவர் சொல்லிக்கிட்டு இருக்கிறாரு. வெளிநாட்டு பிரச்சனையாக இருக்க இலங்கை பிரச்சனையை பற்றி தீர்மானம் படுத்துக்கிட்டு அசம்பிளியில் அதுக்கு கூட்டணி கட்சியாக இருக்கக்கூடிய அந்த கட்சியை சேர்ந்தவங்களாம் பாராட்டு தெரிவித்து வாழ்த்தெல்லாம் தெரிவிச்சிருக்கிறாங்க. அதே மாதிரி சட்டமன்றத்தில் வந்து பரிந்துரை பண்ணுறதுக்கு தீர்மானம் போடுறதுக்கு வந்து எந்த சட்டமும் இடம் தடுக்க வேண்டிய அவசியம் இல்லை, அதுக்கு எந்த அதிகாரமும் தேவையில்லை, போடலாம். ஆக இதிலிருந்து ஜெயலலிதாவுடைய நாடகம் வந்து தெளிவாக புரியுது.
Well, meanwhile, an ally of the ruling party AIADMK, the CPI today announced statewide fasts to back the plea of commuting the death sentence of the 3 convicts. Now, the party also called upon all its alliance partners to participate in the fasts. Now, the fast will be observed in party headquarters throughout Tamil Nadu. Meanwhile, CPI State Secretary D. Pandian also wrote to the UPA chief Sonia Gandhi. He alleged that the charges against the 3 had not been proved comprehensively. He also claimed that the unanswered questions had been swept under the carpet. Well, in other associated developments, the issue of 3 convicts on death row has proved to be an emotionally charged one. With voices coming in from a large chunk of the population, demands of commuting the death sentence are fast emerging. Now, this afternoon, lawyers and students came out in large numbers to voice their opinions and to back the call for taking the 3 convicts off of death row.
அப்பாவி தமிழர்களான சாந்தன், முருகன் மற்றும் பேரறிவாளன் அவர்கள் தூக்கிலிடுவதை சட்டக்கல்லூரி மாணவர்கள் சார்பாக நாங்கள் கண்டிக்கின்றோம். இந்த போராட்டங்கள் வலும் பெறும். அந்த தூக்கு தண்டனையை உடனடியாக மத்திய அரசு ரத்து செய்ய வேண்டும். 152 நாடுகளில் தூக்கு தண்டனை ரத்து செய்யப்பட்டுள்ளது. இந்தியா ஜனநாயக நாடு என்று கருதப்படுகிறது. இந்த ஜனநாயக நாட்டிலே தூக்கு தண்டனைகள் இதுவரை ரத்து செய்யப்படவில்லை. தமிழகர்கள் என்ற பாகுபாட்டினால் இவர்களை தூக்கிலிடுகிறார்கள். இதை மத்திய அரசை நாங்கள் கண்டித்துக் கொள்கிறோம். இதனை வலியுறுத்தி பனகல் மாளிகை முன்னிலையில் சட்டக்கல்லூரி மாணவர்கள் ஆர்ப்பாட்டத்தில் ஈடுபட்டனர். அந்த சட்டக்கல்லூரி மாணவர்கள் 500 பேரையும் ஒட்டுமொத்த கல்லூரி மாணவர்களையும் கைது செய்து காவல்துறையினர் காலையில் இருந்து மாலை வரை இன்னும் விடுவிக்கப்படவில்லை. அவர்களை உடனடியாக விடுதலை செய்ய வேண்டும் என்று சட்டக்கல்லூரி மாணவர்கள் ஆர்ப்பாட்டத்தின் மூலமாக கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறோம்.
It's time now for the big debate on the big question with our executive editor Sanjay Pinto.
Thank you, Ashmit. Joining us live in our studio, Mr. K.M. Vijayan, constitution expert and senior advocate of the Madras High Court. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. S. Murari, who's a senior journalist, somebody who's also got a strong legal background. Thank you, Murari, for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you back here. And joining us through our OB van from her residence is Mrs. Sudha Rambalingam, again a regular panelist on our show. Ma'am, absolutely wonderful to have you back on our show. Ms. Sudha Rambalingam is, of course, the National Vice President of PUCL and a senior advocate, somebody who has been in the forefront of this demand for mercy for the 3 convicts who are facing the gallows. Mr. Vijayan, to you first, sir. Isn't the power of the governor under Article 161 of the Constitution to grant pardon absolute, unfettered and unaffected by previous rejections of mercy, please?
There are 2 aspects to be informed in this. The previous rejection by the governor, normally applying the principles of law of res judicata, makes him not to review the matter once again. We had, as long as the clemency power is there, it can be exercised, but in Naruram's case, it has been made clear the judicial intervention will come only if the clemency power is not exercised rationally and it is mala fide. Except these 2 short grounds, it cannot be done. But what is very important to be noted here is, on the basis of Swaran Singh case, once the power has been exercised and rejected, and it has again been considered by a High Court of Madras. In this case, people have lost memory First, the decision of the then Governor Fatima Bibi had first rejected the mercy petition of the 4 persons, but at that time the High Court of Madras has ruled that the governor does not exercise the power on her own, she exercises on the advice of the Council of Ministers. Immediately after that November decision, in April, the governor once again on the advice of the then Chief Minister and his Council of Ministers, Mr. Karunanidhi, had rejected the mercy petition. The very next day they have applied for the President of India. They are not challenged that order. So what is forgotten in this is A, that the governor's second rejection petition on the advice of the Council of Ministers was not challenged by the persons who are affected by it. The very next day they simply filed a petition before the President. The second aspect again is, as per the constitutional provision, this murder, unlike other murder cases, is charged under the TADA Act. For the TADA Act, people are under the wrong impression state government is the prosecutor. In this case, it is not the state government is the prosecutor, and in this case being a central act, the executive power of the governor is not at all available for considering the mercy petition.
All right, Mrs. Sudha Ramlinga, ma'am, that's an interesting point Mr. Vijayan is raising. But we've got the case of Govind Sami in Tamil Nadu. In fact, somebody who was permitted, repeated commutation petitions. Is there a bar on the number of commutation petitions you can actually file, ma'am?
See, as far as I am concerned, I feel that there is no bar on filing commutation petition. But as far as this case at this moment is concerned, we need no mercy from any state, the governor or the president. As on date, as the executive has failed within reasonable time to consider the mercy petitions. Now, if the case is being taken up before the Supreme Court, only because of the delay, the courts have repeatedly held that Article 21 is violated when the state does not apply its executive powers within reasonable time. In Vaideswaran's case, it was 2 years, but later on the Supreme Court has repeatedly said the 2 years need not be there, but it should be a reasonable time. Justice Chandrachud gives a very elaborate judgment in which the full bench of the Supreme Court very clearly states that the Supreme Court can commute the sentence even after the mercy petition is being rejected, for the simple reason that the death row convict has been in solitary confinement for years together, and that itself is sufficient punishment.
Let me bring in Mr. Murari. Mr. Murari, is this a case, the principle, applying the principle of double jeopardy, that you cannot be punished twice for the same offence? The fact that all the accused, all these 3 convicts have been languishing in prison for 20 years, that it's taken 11 years to actually decide on their mercy pleas. Shouldn't we have a country which gives a terrorist like Kasab a fair trial? Shouldn't we then, for our own citizens, have at least some time frame to decide on their pleas, because the courts have ruled in the past this is uncertainty leads to a lot of mental agony and anguish.
See, the reasonable time has not been defined. In this case, if you see, the final judgment came sometime in 1999, if I am right. Yes. And then the mercy petition in the case of Sonia Gandhi, it was decided. I mean, Sonia Gandhi intervened and got Nalini the pardon for because they didn't want the child Haridri, who is pleading so passionately now, to be orphaned, because all of them, both of them have been given death sentence. After that, he recounted all the incidents, going to the governor and going to the president. So actually, if you see, they have been in death row only for 10 years. It's very easy to say after 10 years. Living under the shadow of death is itself is a big.
No, in fact, and also punishment. Being behind bars. If I ask you to put your mobile phone on silent, panelists are a little uneasy. If I take away your mobile phone, it's even worse. But imagine being behind bars for so long, not knowing when.
But Sanjay, the point that the abolitionists are saying is, commute the sentence, but let them be in jail for the rest of this life without remission. That's more cruel than death sentence, I'll tell you.
Ma'am, would you buy that argument? Murari says here that because there's a misconception in our country, people think that life imprisonment is only 14 years. It's a misconception. But Murari making an interesting point here that to leave them in prison instead of actually executing them is a lot more cruel than actually executing them.
Absolutely not. You can keep them in prison and then also work out other remedies. We have a number of cases. The case of Mr. Balan in Kerala is a very classical example where Mr. Namboodiripad, who was the then Chief Minister, and V.R. Krishna Iyer as the Law Minister, threatened to amend the provisions of the Indian Penal Code as far as the death penalty is concerned if his sentence was not commuted by the centre. You know, the state government has powers to amend this law and abolish death sentence as far as the state is concerned, because it is in the concurrent list. This I just find today it was a joke. You have played this record of Mr. Karunanidhi and Stalin speaking about the state government's inaction. Just a little while before, Vijayan very clearly told how Mr. Karunanidhi has recommended for throwing away the mercy petition by the then governor. So this is a game of politics which is played, but as far as the courts are concerned, as far as the law is concerned, there need be no mercy. It is a matter of right for these three prisoners to get this commuted to a life and ensure that the petitions are being allowed, because there are plethora of judgments in their favor.
Ma'am, now the rarest of rare cases, now a human bomb to blow up a beloved national leader and former Prime Minister, does that not fall under the rarest of rare cases, ma'am?
Absolutely, it could be a rarest of rare cases, but definitely the Supreme Court very clearly said that Tada is not attracted in this case. It was not an act of terror, it was just per se plain murder. That is what the Supreme Court comes to a conclusion as. One. Secondly, we are not talking about the death sentence today, we are talking about the way the executive has functioned, how these three people have been under the shadow of the death sentence in solitary confinement, deprived of their human rights, deprived of all their dignity, and the Supreme Court calls it as inhuman and degrading to have a person under the death row for years and years together. So this itself is sufficient reason for commuting their sentence to one of life and removing the death sentence itself.
Like to remove.
Two things. One, she says that they were not convicted under Tada. So this your earlier point
they are
that
convicted under Tada.
No, your earlier point that that the Tada operates and therefore governor has
their prosecution was itself under the Tada Act only. I will come to it later. There are two misconceptions I would like to remove from this. Everybody says that people have suffered for 20 years. So why you have to now consider about for a life sentence instead of death? One aspect they have forgotten. It is not people who are ought to have been freed or in jail. As against a death, they are not facing the death. There is no question of delay in trial or delay in deciding the executive action.
But there are High Court judgments. High Court judgments, the Triveni Bench judgment which says that inordinate delay is
what I am trying to say in this case is, a person should be happy. He could have been, if the rejection would have been done earlier, he would have died long back. A person who would have otherwise executed, he is having a premium of life for 20 years. It is not he is in jail, he is suffering. That is,
ma'am, is that a fancy term here? Premium of life?
Sorry, it is not a premium of life, Vijayan. I just expect something more from Vijayan now. I'm really astonished about how Vijayan says it's a premium of life. As Sanjay Pinto rightly pointed out, you can't even stay for a few minutes without your mobile phone. You are kept in under incarceration with a death sentence just at your neck. And do you mean to say that they are enjoying life? It is not so. And definitely the courts have repeatedly held executive inaction for years and years together for more than a decade should give them the leverage to be their death sentence has to be commuted to one of life, and it is violative of Article 21. It's not what I say, what Chinnaparadi has said, Jay has said, what Chandrachud Jay has said. A number of other Supreme Court judges have said this. It is not just my argument.
Yes,
it is something which has
been. Is this? These people are up in arms only when it comes to high-profile cases like these three. How many people are in the death row right now? Do they have figures? How many have been for how long? They don't have nobody speaks about that. Hardly in Calcutta, I remember Dhananjay, somebody was
Dhananjay Chatterjee, 2004.
Yeah, there was no hue and cry about that.
So there was a hue and cry even then.
No, not
every time something like this comes up, it sort of resuscitates and revives the debate against capital punishment.
Every president keeps an arrears of this clemency petitions under weightage. It has happened while Abdul Kalam was a president.
But Abdul Kalam gave guidelines, sir. President Kalam gave guidelines.
He was having the arrears of his previous predecessor. Then after Abdul Kalam, the present president is having because one aspect which everybody should know. Unfortunately, the president doesn't keep it on her own or his own, because president doesn't have the right to decide.
Ministers, yeah.
It is only the council of ministers have to decide. There are lots of political reasons or so many reasons why the council of ministers have not acted upon fast. But ultimately, one aspect which I would like to very stress upon, normally one can say rare and rarest of case alone this execution has to be given. But people have forgotten there is no theoretical dogma for having a death free or death sentence should not be abolished. That theory will not be possible in a geopolitical situation except examining the geopolitical situation of a country. India is covered by one side Pakistan, another side China, which are trying to do cross-border terrorism. Those terrorists for a conviction, there may be different. But if they make the other people here in the name of religion or in the name of any other discontent in the society, also to join hands with them, that is a very dangerous thing.
But then people like Kasab are being given royal treatment inside.
No. Treatment, see, there is a difference between a person getting a treatment as an under prisoner trial.
Yes.
There is after conviction. We are getting confused about what is Kasab is
but the whole nation saw him pumping bullets, sir. So, I mean, we are having a trial because we don't want to be a banana republic.
We are not concerned. We should not forget what is the geopolitical situation of India. Geopolitical situation of India does not warrant to declare to sign the optional protocol under the international law.
What about the geopolitical situation of 137 countries which have abolished the death
penalty? They are far better. That is why I am saying Pakistan cannot do this, Afghanistan cannot do this, India cannot do it.
137 countries have.
No, there may be, that is immaterial. Forget about there are 180 countries in the United Nations. 137 may do it. 50 cannot do it, means that is a geopolitical condition.
Ma'am, Mrs. Sudha Ramaling, if I can bring you in here. Now, ma'am, in fact, with regard, for instance, the Dilshan killing, the little boy who went to climb a tree to steal fruits was shot dead, by a retired army officer. The trial is now taking place. There were some of these groups which are now beating their chest against capital punishment, who wanted the killer of Dilshan to be hanged. But now when it comes to these three convicts, at one level it seems to be double standards, ma'am.
I'm sorry to tell this, it is double standard for a few groups, but as far as the People's Union for Civil Liberties, to which I belong, even from my college days when Mr. Jaiprakash Narayan, the founder, was there, we had started this movement against death penalty. We have been doing this consistently. We did give our voice for Mr. Govindasamy. We did give our voice for Dhananjay Chatterjee. We have been fighting for every death sentence prisoner. It is not only for these three prisoners that we are giving our voices and trying to ensure that their petitions are being allowed and then that death sentence be commuted to one of life. This is an ongoing, constant dialogue by the PUCL.
Ma'am, what would your stand be? What would your stand be with regard to the case of the case where these college girls were burnt alive in the bus, ma'am?
Yes, I was on air with you, Sanjay Pinto. I was on air with you, Sanjay Pinto, on this. We take a stand that no one should be punished with capital punishment, whatsoever the crime be, for various reasons, including the reason that one, our judicial system is not above board. There could be fallacies, there could be faults. Two, there cannot be retribution, which is not accepted in the civilized society. Three, for the deterrence sake, to ensure that somebody else does not commit a crime, you cannot have death penalty. The only reason for which any penalty is given, any punishment is given, is according to punishment jurisprudence, is for reformation, and reformation could never be possible if you are going to execute somebody. There are also cases where those persons who were convicted, executed for death sentence, with death sentence executed, we have seen that the so-called murdered have come alive, or we have learnt that the person who was executed was in fact not the real culprit. There was somebody else who did it. They were really innocent. So if these are the cases which are at hand, we have even
there are such cases. There are such cases. There are also cases, ma'am, where, for instance, Madani, when he was in prison, he had an Ayurvedic spa. Another corporate honcho had a special badminton court prepared for him. There are people, prisoners in Bihar who have just about everything they can get as they would outside. So there are exception cases, but here, Murari, I want to bring you in here. The fact that he has spent considerable period of time waiting, these three prisoners have been waiting for a decision. The fact that it's taken 11 long years, in law, is that a factor?
It is a matter that has to be weighed upon by the court. Now they are going to court anyway.
Because courts today are not just courts of law but also courts of justice.
Yes.
So someone has been undergoing mental agony and anguish, not knowing whether they're going to live or not. That itself is cruelty. So the court should take note of that. The court should also be reasonably humane in their approach.
See, the point now is these people are going strictly on law, the delay in execution. But the lobbyists, outside, they are saying they have to be spared because they are Tamils. I don't buy that argument.
No, that is not. We are not even considering that.
This is a lobby that is powerful, lobby that is working here, and they forget the fact. It's Rajiv Gandhi's killing was a horrendous crime. It may not be a terrorist act in the technical sense, in the sense it led to the overwhelming of the state and all. You know what the definition of a terrorist act is. So maybe I believe Supreme Court took a rather narrow view on the terrorist act. Maybe anyway, it is one of the rarest of rare cases, and it has gone through the due process. It has gone to the highest court of the land, and it has been confirmed. Even after that, the government has gone through the due process, and now we have reached the final stage. At this stage, for all these abolitionists to come to the fore and say, now there is delay, you must spare him. I think there is a vested interest in this.
Ma'am, is there a vested interest here in this case? And also,
undoubtedly there is a vested interest.
Ma'am, also the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister has in fact spelt out her stand in the Assembly, saying that the ball.
Correct. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister is absolutely correct in her
Okay,
stand.
saying that the ball is now in the court of the President of India. It's only open. The only recourse open to them is to go back to the President of India.
No, she is wrong. She can initiate action, she can initiate a legislation to amend the Indian Penal Code to ensure that capital punishment is removed from the books as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned. It is in the concurrent list. It is just that we do not have the political will to ensure that death penalty is removed from the books. When you are in the opposition, you will be crying for the sake of the prisoners. When you are in the ruling party, you will do nothing but only keep blaming others.
I would like to take her on that.
Yeah, please.
Tamil Nadu should abolish death penalty. It was Rajiv Gandhi was killed right here in Tamil Nadu. All the more reason why we should have.
Not only Rajiv Gandhi, every murder is horrendous. It is horrendous for anyone to die, whether it is going to be judicial murder or it is going to be murder by any other person.
You cannot enact a law after a person is convicted by a court.
Yes.
Otherwise, it is called legislative judgment.
No, but it revives the debate.
You cannot undo a judgment by a law, post facto law.
But Mr. Vijayan, again, as Mrs. Sudha Ramlingam rightly pointed out, reformation. These three convicts, in fact, they have not come to adverse notice. They have shown good. No, they have shown good behavior. They have shown signs of reformation. They have completed their post graduation. They have been teaching other prisoners. In fact, I went through a petition filed by PUCL addressed to the government, where they even said that a former DGP of prisons also inaugurated a program there by these convicts. So they have shown that they have reformed. Why is the state?
No, we are not discussing the human conduct.
No, but are we being barbaric? Are we being barbaric by retaining on the statute book the state's right to kill a killer?
Can I take you on that? Because I know the mindset of the LTT. Okay, fine. They were part of the LTT, hardcore committed supporters. Can you come out and say what they did was wrong? They were misled by the LTT. LTT was a terrorist organization, and the killing of Rajiv Gandhi was a horrendous crime.
Anton Balasingham said it was a monumental blunder.
Monument, that's a different, that is tactical political statement, not a genuine statement. Because they wanted to befriend India, they wanted India on their side.
All right, Mr. Sudha Ramlingam, ma'am, the CBI, Murari in fact has echoed.
Even Prabhakar wants to say it was a historical blunder. That's a tactical way of saying.
All right, Mr. Murari in fact echoes what the CBI says. In fact, the CBI says that these convicts were from the core group of the LTT and their involvement was beyond mere supply of batteries.
Killing anyone is horrendous. It is not merely killing of Rajiv Gandhi is horrendous. We do not support killing, whether it be by individuals, groups, or even judicial murder. We call execution of capital sentences as judicial murder. We do not want murder of anyone. We would like people to live, people to reform, people to contribute to the society, and we have no power or authority to annihilate anyone for whatever reason it be.
Mr. Vijayan, also the deterrent aspect, all those who favor capital punishment seem to suggest that you will take away the deterrence here. But after all these years that we have had capital punishment, Has the crime rate gone down? Have the number of murders come
There
down?
are three things which has to be understood in this. First of all, the deterrent punishment, namely the execution over a period of 60 years of independence is not more than 60 to 70. So, rare and rarest of cases A. B, there are different types of killings. It is not every murder for a counter punishment is we should take away a life of a person in the jail or by an execution. But there are certain offences which has the effect of tilting the sovereignty or giving a challenge to the sovereignty in a country by a cross-border terrorism. That is why I have been making this statement very consciously.
Of the kind Kasab
We cannot assume normal theoretical law of human rights activists on the dogmas of avoiding capital punishment. To decide what will be a better criminal jurisprudence to a country, we cannot disregard the geopolitical location of that country. India, unfortunately, is not in a geopolitical location of a country like Scandinavian countries to consider it immediately.
All right. Yes, ma'am. You wanted to comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt here. It is not any geopolitical reasons for which any capital punishment is given. And a study of the capital punishments which have been executed till date has clearly shown that it is only the underprivileged, the lower caste or the lower class people who have ever been executed. For those people who can procure or secure really legal aid from the very well off or powerful senior lawyers.
Ma'am, but Ram Jethmalani and Colin Gonsalves are coming down to fight this case, ma'am. Ram Jethmalani, the top lawyers are coming.
I'm talking about the general. I'm talking about the generality of the capital punishments. People who have got the power are all those who escape the clutches of law as far as the severe punishments are concerned. All those who have been executed till date are only those who are from the underprivileged society. By and large, we have found that the people from the lower caste or the lower class of persons who could only not afford real legal aid for themselves were those who have been convicted and they also executed. It's very, we don't find geopolitical reasons for any execution. Geopolitical things are something which you talk on theory. It is not in practice. No country is going to say
that
because of
Bihar, what is
geopolitical
happening
reasons
now,
I'm not going to
that
have
Maoists are coming. And also, I can say that Pakistani terrorists coming to India are Maoist in Bihar and other places, Chhattisgarh and other places. So, there is a threat which we are undermining. In fact, LTT is also a geopolitical threat to India.
Murari, one final question to you since we are running out of time. Changed circumstances. In fact, the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, while reading out her statement in the Assembly, spelling out her stance, said, if there are changed circumstances, it's open to these three convicts to go back to the President of India with another mercy plea. Changed circumstances in this case is that the LTT doesn't exist now.
Yes.
Is that reason enough?
In a way, yes, because it cannot be revived. It is extinct and the entire leadership has been
So, if these people come out, there is no real threat to society.
Yes, certainly not. But they have, will they, if they want to show reformation, will they regret their past association with the LTT? I doubt it.
But I have one objection to that. LTT is not there in this country. I mean, it is not there in their country. But people who are aping LTT are very much a political party in Tamil Nadu itself, which you will remember within 10 years from today.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Vijayan, for giving us your legal perspective, Mr. Murari, and to Mrs. Subhadra Ramlingam, who in fact echo the sentiments of all those people who are in fact who have launched that crusade to save these three men from the death row. Whenever such mercy petitions are rejected, in fact it revives the whole debate on capital punishment, whether the hangman should keep his job or not. That's all the time we have for on this discussion, but stay tuned because Ashmit has a lot more news coming up.